Ladles and jelly spoons, welcome back to Friday 5-Minute Facts, broadcasting from the Orbital Broadcast Bunker, Britain's first and only airborne subterranean studio. I am Pat Whitemuffin, and tonight we are examining 2008's Alone in the Dark, a game that tried to reinvent survival horror, and somehow didn't manage to survive not being terrible.
Hello there, Keith here, ensuring that everyone has a proper brew for this tale. Now, did you know that decaffeinated tea isn't completely caffeine free? Most still contains around 2 to 5 milligrams of caffeine per cup, depending on the brew method used. Rather like this game claiming to be a horror title, whilst only trace amounts of horror can actually be found.
Now this, with the first Alone in the Dark released under Infogrames' new brand Atari. Like putting a different badge on the same broken down car and hoping nobody notices the engine's held together with gaffer tape.
Sir, over here! Gotta go around the building! Grab this cable! Hey, you alright?
Yeah, their game was originally titled Alone in the Dark, Near-Death Investigations. It's quite prolific, really, although they might have been referring to the near-death experience of playing through the whole thing.
They kept that name for the Asian version, you know.
The game is dedicated to the memory of Jean-Michel Harvey, a 3D programmer at Eden Games. Rather touching tribute, although I suspect he'd have preferred they dedicated a working game in his memory instead.
Eden Games developed this, and they're primarily a racing studio. Their main claim to fame was Test Drive Unlimited. So naturally they thought, what could go wrong with making a horror game?
Yeah, the cars in Alone in the Dark actually use the same underlying technology as Test Drive Unlimited. Rather like using a Formula 1 engine to power a milk float. Impressive, but completely inappropriate for the job.
The phone numbers in this game are a proper comedy goldmine. Sarah's number is 111, which is apparently a reference to New Zealand emergency services. Crowley's number is 666 because subtlety died along with good game design. And Hartford's personal number is 911, which is obviously the American emergency services line. Bit on the nose, that.
The game pays homage to the original with modernised elements. The roots of evil that kill you with fire recall the first game. There's a dark maze referenced in the labyrinth beneath Desetto. Rather like remaking Shakespeare, but, setting it in a shopping centre. Is this a quiche I see before me?
Now, this is the first title in the series not to use the famous window shot that appears in every previous game. They broke that tradition faster than a New Year's resolution.
In room 943 of the museum, you can see a photo from the New Nightmare on the wall. That's quite nostalgic, really. Like keeping a photo of relatives you'd rather forget. Speaking of families, badgers have 5 toes on each foot, with long curved claws that are perfect for digging, but they also help with climbing. Rather more useful appendages than the controls in this game, I'd say.
First teaser trailer featured fake newspaper articles about disappearances in Central Park. The journalists were named after horror directors, Sam Raimi, John Carpenter, plus Bruce Campbell from Evil Dead, because nothing says we understand horror like name-dropping better creators.
On the Central Park taxi canopies, you can spot the Test Drive Unlimited logo. Eden Games couldn't resist a bit of cross-promotion, rather like serving tea with badger biscuits. I could. Nobody's asked me to.
Keith, what are badger biscuits? You know what, I don't want to know. The PlayStation 3 version, called Inferno, made running Edward's default movement instead of walking, because clearly the biggest problem with the original was that players weren't fleeing fast enough. Here we are, discussing a game that represents everything wrong with mid-2000s design philosophy. Alone in the Dark 2008. Apparently someone looked at survival horror and thought, you know what this needs? More inventory management and fewer actual scares. I can see that you've been trying to forget this game exists so much, it's made you late, as usual, on a Friday. This train wreck was originally conceived as an episodic game, which explains why each chapter starts with a previously on Alone in the Dark recap, like watching a TV series where every episode was written by different people who'd never actually met and actively despised each other's work.
The inventory system was rather unique. Instead of menus, Edward opened up his jacket and showed his collected items. It's quite innovative, really, like replacing your kitchen cupboards with transparent filing cabinets. Functional, but utterly bonkers.
The real genius was the skip level feature. If a puzzle proved too difficult, you could simply bypass that entire section of the game, because nothing says we have confidence in our design like providing an official give up button.
The game had a tech demo showing how you could break a table leg, light it on fire, and use it as a torch. That's a terribly impressive demonstration of making your own weapons. Although most players probably wanted us to use the torch to set the entire game ablaze.
Atari actually threatened websites with lawsuits over negative reviews, claiming they couldn't have been based on the final version, because the best response to criticism is legal intimidation, obviously. The PlayStation 3 Inferno version tried to fix the problems with full 360-degree camera control, improved driving, and a new action sequence, but it were like applying a plaster to a severed limb. It addressed the issue, but missed the bigger picture.
Now, despite receiving mixed to negative reviews, the game was apparently financially successful. Rather like serving burnt toast and having people pay for the privilege. Sometimes the market works in mysterious ways.
The tragedy is that buried beneath layers of ambitious incompetence, there were some genuinely interesting ideas. The environmental interaction system, the real-time inventory, the episodic structure, they're all potentially brilliant concepts, executed with the finesse of a badger performing brain surgery.
Look, I'm just surprised that Benji managed to fill out that medical school application. But this game is widely considered to have killed off the franchise. That was until THQ Nordic revived it in 2024. That's quite an achievement in itself, making a survival horror so bad that it needed 16 years to recover.
Although I must say the dedication to Jean-Michel Harvey was rather touching. Sometimes the most important thing about a project is the people who worked on it, regardless of the final result. Yes, here's to Alone in the Dark 2008, a game that proved that you can have unlimited ambition and still create something that makes players question their life choices. That's not just survival horror, that's surviving the horror of your own purchasing decisions.
Hey, you all right?
Now, actually a lot for this week's Friday 5-minute facts. We've covered ambitious failures, racing game developers making horror, and even the fine art of threatening reviewers.
Do remember to like this video, if you enjoy our ramblings through early 2000s video games.
Share this with anyone who remembers when next gen meant adding more features rather than making the game work properly. And of course, subscribe for more tales of games that reached for the stars and landed face first in a puddle, because sometimes the most entertaining stories come from the biggest disasters. Until next time, this is Pat, Keith and our lad from the Orbital Broadcast Bunker, about to nip down to the Dog and Duck, reminding you that some stones are better left unturned, especially if they're called the Philosopher's Stone and are guarded by terrible game mechanics.
Cheerio, little jelly spoons!